We are about to welcome to the stage. She said Team Lawrence. I'm Team Lawrence too. You all, here we go. Please join me in welcoming writer, actor, producer, Jay Ellis.
What's good, y'all? Let's go. Lawrence Hive in the house?
Yep. Jay, welcome. We've got a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
First, the fact that our last name, purely coincidental.
Are we related?
We are related.
We're related.
I think it's possible. I think it's possible. But I want us to dive right in. We have so much to talk about. So I think let's go from the beginning. So you're originally from South Carolina.
Yeah. Hey, yes. South Cackalack.
But tell us, for the people who do not know, how did you get your start in acting? And what was it like navigating Hollywood as a black actor?
Man, my story is actually really, really wild. I got the opportunity, when I was in high school, I dunked on a kid who was 6'11". And I was an okay basketball player at best. But I had a really good game. I ended up getting scouted to go to college and play basketball in Portland, Oregon. There's this kid who used to come to open gym all the time, and his mom was a booker for a modeling agency. And he was like, hey, my mom is trying to book some models for some thing. You should come. I go to this thing. It's a bus commercial. I meet this young woman. She tells me she was just like traveling the world. She made a bunch of money. I was like, I don't know what you were doing, but I want to do that. I end up going to the agency that she was repped at, and I take a couple pictures. They call me at the end of that day, and they're like, hey, you just booked the Jordan brand catalog for whatever for spring of that thing. And from there, I was like, oh, this is my way into Hollywood. Like, I'm gonna be like the model who crosses over. Like, they just gonna all call me. It did not happen that way at all whatsoever. They did not call. I didn't model that much more after that either. But anyway, I ultimately ended up moving to LA, and I was at a party once. I met this agent. And he was like, are you an actor? And I was like, of course I'm an actor. I had never taken an acting class in my life. And he was like, all right, well, next week I want you to come to my office, bring your headshot, bring your resume. I typed up every job I had since high school. Athlete's Foot, The Gap, the kitchen at the cafeteria in college, where I used to prepare the salads. Literally every job I had. I didn't know what a headshot was, so I got somebody from Craigslist to take headshots for me. And this dude was like, you have no idea what you're doing, do you? And I was like, no, but I promise you, if you give me time, I'll figure it out. He reps me for a little bit. I'm a horrible auditioner because I had never taken an acting class. It was really bad. I didn't get a job. He calls me one day and he's like, I'm dropping you. And I was like, all right, whatever. I don't want to be a starving artist anyway. Don't nobody want to be driving across LA all day, getting parking tickets. I can't pay my rent. I was working at Steve Madden in the Beverly Center. I was the Al Bundy of the Beverly Center, selling women's shoes at the time. Anyway, so fast forward, a few years later, I ended up working in retail. My boss called me. She was like, hey, I just got let go. They're probably going to let you go next. I just want to give you a heads up so you can call a headhunter. And all I could think to myself was like, I moved to LA to be an actor, but I was too much of a coward to see it all the way through. I didn't want the rejection. I didn't want to do the work. And if I was gonna work retail, I could live anywhere. So I just dedicated myself. I was like, all right, for the next 2 years, I'm just gonna go to class and learn as much as I possibly can. And I did. And that ended up, on the back end of that 2 years, I did a workshop. I met a manager, met an agent, started auditioning, ultimately booked the game. Yeah, thank you. And then, I was fortunate enough to come off the game and go straight into Insecure. And fortunate enough to get to do Top Gun while I was doing Insecure.
Absolutely, and I love that you mentioned Insecure, because my next question, Team Lawrence, is, right? Is it really, there was such an evolution of Lawrence and his character, and people really were choosing sides. So what do you think it was about your character, the show, that resonated so deeply with the audience?
there's so much. I think the messiness of these characters was such a real thing. And we had seen a version of like so many perfect black families and perfect black folks on television before, because those were some of the only depictions of us that they were allowing on television, right? And I think the authenticity of Insecure and what it is to be at that age and still trying to figure out who you are, and you're gonna make mistakes, and you're also sometimes you don't know what's good for you, and you go the wrong direction. And I think that really is what so many people connect to. Is like, oh, I've been at a moment like this in my life, or I'm going through a moment like this right now. And it's also beautiful black people on screen. We get to authentically tell a story about us and about Inglewood and South LA. And I think there's something to that too, because we don't really get to see neighborhoods like that on screen that often and depicted for how beautiful they are. At the same time, like we don't get that, and I think that's why so many people, connect to it.
And do you have a favorite episode, or is it like trying to pick your favorite child?
Nah, I got a favorite episode.
Are you gonna tell us?
I got a favorite episode. I think episode 408, which is the episode where Issa and Lawrence spend the whole night together.
Good one.
I think that's the best episode of the show. Like hands down. Natasha Rothwell wrote that episode. Our DP on the show, she directed it. A guy named Jason Liu was a big part of that episode as well. Like I really believe like that is such a perfect episode of television, and we've never gotten to see that story from two black characters on screen before.
And I love what you said about going back to when you were starting in acting, that it wasn't until you took the jump and you were like, I'm actually going to commit, and then all the doors started opening up. So what would you say to creatives who maybe want to pursue their passion full time, but they're overwhelmed, they're intimidated, and they're not sure they can take a leap of faith?
I think if you're not afraid, then you're not doing it right. Or if you're not afraid, then you maybe shouldn't be doing it, to be honest with you, because I do think that like that is part of the process. I think you have to go through that a little bit, and you got to push through that. And I was listening to the women who were up here talking before, on the panel before, and like, being your authentic self and showing up as you every single day is such a huge, huge part of that. Like, yes, you should be a student. Yes, you should learn everything you could possibly learn. You should, if you want to do television and film, for example, you should watch television and film nonstop. You should read scripts nonstop. You should know that Sarita Singleton is a writer, and this is the type of show that she writes. So when you go in to audition for her as an actor, or you want her to read a sample of yours, you should know the type of material that she is used to producing, and not just blindly throw your multicam comedy at her, because that's not what she does, right? And so I think when you do all of those things, and then at a certain point you just have to realize that like the only way it's gonna get done is if you do it. And yes, you're gonna fall, and that's cool. You're just gonna get back up and you're gonna keep doing it. And if a door shuts in your face, you're just gonna keep walking until a door opens. Every no is you getting closer to your yes. And you just have to continue to remember that and believe that.
Amen. Yes. And I think, talking about pushing through and having resilience, hearing a lot of no's, a lot of it is also about time management and your mental space and how you're doing with all the things that you're juggling. So have you found the balance? Are you a workaholic? Are you able to kind of rest and work? Or he laughs.
Nah, I'm a workaholic. I know it. I admit it. I think that is part of my recovery program. But I enjoy it and I love it. And I think I'm such a workaholic because I love the work that I do. I love getting to tell stories that hopefully every single one of you in this room, folks on the internet, folks who aren't here, resonate with and enjoy. And I hope you get pissed at me, and I hope you love me, and I hope you're like on the fence with my character and you don't know how you feel about them. Like, to me, that is what fuels me every single day. I will say though, I have started to find a little bit more balance. I I believe in quiet time, whether that's prayer, whether that's meditation, whatever you want to call it, like just disconnect. I do mine in the morning. I get up and go for like a 45-minute to an hour walk every single morning and just spend that time trying not to think about work, trying not to think about anything that feels stressful or overwhelming, and just have time with myself. And I feel like that's been a huge change for me in my creative process as well as my self-care routine.
Yes. So I want to transition a little bit to talk about Top Gun Maverick. So it's a follow-up of the 1980s classic Top Gun. And just what can you tell us about the movie? A few of us got a preview earlier this week, so shout out Paramount, that was amazing. But for those of us who, yes, we love free screenings, yes. But for those of us who weren't able to see it, what can you tell us?
It's amazing. I mean, Top Gun, you know, I think back, my dad was in the Air Force, and my grandfathers were in the Air Force. And I remember being a kid and seeing this movie on Bergstrom Air Force Base in Austin, Texas, when I was like 8, 9 years old, and it was a packed theater. And I remember the feeling of all the folks in the theater who were part of the aviation community and in armed forces, like wrapping their arms around this film, and folks were high-fiving and crying and gasping when Goose died and all this stuff. And I remember like, oh, I want to do that. And I was a kid, so I didn't know if that meant I wanted to be a pilot or if I wanted to be an actor. I wasn't really sure. I was just like, I want to do whatever they're doing. And fast forward to be able to do that is mind-blowing. You know, I feel like I've seen every Tom Cruise movie probably twice. And so to be able to get the opportunity to step into this franchise that, you know, Tony Scott, Jerry Bruckheimer, and Tom Cruise built 36 years ago is an absolute blessing. And I feel like I'm a kid, like getting to like go through this. And on top of that, like the thing that makes me most proud is how diverse the film is. Like this film looks like the armed services that I grew up in. There is representation across culture in this film. Nobody of color dies in this film. There is more than one black person speaking in this film, and often, you know, and that's important because that's the world, you know, we've been left out of things for so long. And I think like this film has done an absolutely amazing job. The filmmakers did an absolutely amazing job of making sure that like folks were represented. And to me, like, I'm so proud of that. And on the other part, I got to fly in the back of an F-18, y'all. It's literally 7 actors in Hollywood who have flown in a jet going 1,000 miles an hour while filming a movie, and your boy is one of them. It was crazy, absolutely insane.
It is absolutely insane, and we actually have a look. We have a look of the trailer, so let's take a look.
We are cleared into the area. Verify cameras are on. All right, here we go.
Here comes some G's. There's 5 G's.
6 G's.
7 G's.
I wasn't ready to make a sequel until technology evolved so we could delve deeper into the experience of a fighter pilot.
Tom designed this all-encompassing aviation training for all the actors.
I started them out in a single-engine airplane to build up their spatial awareness inside the aircraft.
Oh, wow. That's amazing! Oh, my God!
Next, we took them to the L-39, and they went and flew aerobatics to feel what it's like in a jet.
Some speed. Wow.
From there, they'd graduate to the F-18 Super Hornet and actually launching off an aircraft carrier.
That's what I'm talking about.
Definitely the most amazing thing I've ever done. All the training, 100% prepared us.
I'm very proud of what we all accomplished. Each one of them are extraordinary.
That looks so intense. Did it make your stomach hurt? That looks so intense.
Nah, you know what's wild is so like, I mean, this is what this thing talks about. Like Tom designed this like flight training program for us where we literally started flying in a Cessna, which is like a tiny little plane that like at best 4 people could fit in. From there, we flew in that. We then moved to another jet called plane called an Extra 300. It was an aerobatic plane, which is that plane where we were all doing spins and going crazy and stuff. And then from there, we went into those L-39 jets, and then we got into the F-18s. So by the time we got to the F-18s, we had about 40 to 45 hours of flight training. Actually, shout out to Paramount because they essentially paid for everybody to get their pilot's license, whether they knew it or not. We all had enough hours to get our pilot's license. Some folks have, I'm still working on mine. But then you get in the jets, and it's like all the preparation was absolutely amazing, and you're so excited, and your adrenaline is pumping, and then your pilot goes like 1,300 miles an hour around a mountain, and you're like, oh, there's nothing to explain how you do this. This is the most amazing thing of my life. I don't know what's happening right now. I think I peed on myself. Should we go back? We can't go back because we got to fly for another hour. Okay. Like, it just was this crazy thing where you have so much coming at you at one time. But I will say, like I said in that featurette, like the training after those first 2 flights, it just kicks in. Like everybody felt like a pilot. Like I confidently can make sure. CultureCon, come on the jet with me. I confidently can make sure that we stay in the air. I'm not sure what happens if we gotta land. We might run out of fuel, but I'm gonna keep us in the air. I promise you.
That's not a bad promise. I mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, for a few hours, we gonna believe we can make it.
Oh my God, your character's name is Payback. So tell us what's going on with Payback. What's his story?
Payback. When we first got the film, we first got the script, all these characters were already scripted. And Joe Kaczynski, our director, was like, hey, if any of you want to change your characters, you can. And of course, everybody was like, oh, I think I can come up with something better than a writer who gets paid to do this for a living and has done this for 30 years. I could do something better than that person. None of us could. But we all were thinking about it. They sent us on this culture trip to Top Gun, to actual Top Gun up in Fallon, Nevada. And we go to this officer's bar one night. And it's our first trip together. We all met each other that morning at the airport at LAX. And there's a guy in the movie. His name is Louis Pullman. He plays a character called Bob. Louis did not speak to us for 8 hours. We flew on a plane with him. We were in a car with him. We were like, yo, is this dude with some method? Like, is he method acting right now? Like, what is happening? So we go to this bar that night, and Louis will not break out of his shell. So I'm like, hey, can I borrow your phone real quick, bro? My phone just died. Nicest guy on the planet. Yeah, sure. Yeah, here you go. You can call long distance too if you need to. And I was like, it's a cell phone. You can call long distance, bro. So he gives me his phone, and I take it and I put it on the bar. Well, in a Navy bar, if your cell phone goes on the bar, you have to buy everybody in the bar drinks. It's 150 people in this bar because they're all like, oh, all these actors are in town. We gonna show them how we get down. It's 150 people in the bar that got like a $6 beer that night on Louis. He looks at me and like dread is on his face. He's like, hey man, I don't know if I can even pay my cell phone bill next week. I can't do this. And I was like, yo, I got you. I'll pay you back. So I earned my name that night. And that's where Payback kind of came. I ended up sticking with Payback because of that night. Phoenix, played by Monica Barbaro, who holds the ladies down in this movie as our female pilot. She, as a woman pilot, she drank harder than anybody that night. Like, when I tell y'all, she was putting beers back. I ain't never seen nothing like that in my life. Nonetheless, she rose from the ashes the next day. So we call her, she stuck with Phoenix after that.
I love these name origins. So what do you hope viewers take away from the movie Top Gun Maverick?
I'm gonna tell you one more thing though.
Oh, yes.
And I'm only gonna tell y'all this because the spirit moved me to do this. The nickname that they came up for me, that my call sign that they decided they wanted to call me on set was Cheeks. I'm just gonna leave y'all with that. Monica said every time I stood up, my booty ate the flight suit. She was like, every time you stand up, like half the flight suit just disappears. Like, what is happening? So she called me Cheeks for a year while we made this movie.
You're not missing leg day. Squats.
I'm not gonna stand up. I'm not gonna stand up. I'm not. Y'all stop playing. Y'all stop playing. Hey. Somebody got
Jay, you
jokes.
know where we are, right? You know where we are, Jay.
Somebody got jokes.
Cat. I mean, you know where we are, Jay. This is Atlanta. This is Atlanta. Well, I mean, I don't want to ask you this. I mean, what do you hope viewers will take away from the movie? I mean, it feels like such a... Let's go back to... Okay.
No, I mean, the thing that I come back to, like, I've been fortunate enough to play some characters that have resonated with folks. And one of the things that was super important to me about this film was getting the opportunity to play somebody in the armed forces, because it is how I grew up. And it was such a huge part of my life, going on and off a military base every single day. And to me, the couple of things that I hope folks take away from this. One, this is a film about competition. It's a film about teamwork. It's a film about people from different backgrounds coming together ultimately to go on this mission that we go on in the film. I think every single person who was a part of this film, took it as a personal, honor to represent the men and women of the armed forces as proudly as we could and as well as we could. And I hope that shows in the film. The other thing, that I hope folks take from this is the filmmaking and the process that we went through to make this film. Tom says in that featurette, he was waiting for the right time. Cameras did not exist that could actually be in a F-18 taking G's and going those speeds until Top Gun. The camera that we used in that film to film in those jets was designed for Top Gun. It was crazy. And so the experience of being able to create that for film, it's a really special moment for the film industry as a whole, because nothing like this has ever been done before. Y'all, I took off from a carrier. The plane shot off the carrier and it dipped down and it got real close to the water, and then the afterburner kicked in and it literally just lifted up in the air. I hope y'all realize that I prayed the entire time because I wasn't sure.
Oh my God. I would be scared to death. I would be scared to death. All right, so we're going to do quick fire.
Let's do it.
Get to know Jay a little better. Sound good, y'all? You want to do this?
Let's do it.
Okay, so salty or sweet?
Salty.
Okay. Aisle seat or window?
Window.
Okay. You don't want the leg room and the aisle?
Nah, I feel like I just want to curl up next to the window and just be like...
Right.
Because my problem is if I get in the aisle, the cart, man, do the cart be hitting y'all in the aisle like it hit me? Yeah. Man, I feel like they are trying to hit you with the cart sometime.
I feel that. That's true.
Dang.
Winter or fall?
Ooh, fall.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the leaves changing colors.
Okay. Coffee, no coffee?
I drink a lot of coffee. Yeah, I drink a lot of coffee.
How do you like your coffee?
Usually straight black if I'm drinking it, because it's usually I'm at work. She like black coffee too, y'all. Don't put no milk in your coffee, Jay. She loves it.
She loves it. Morning person or night owl?
Ooh, night owl.
Ooh. Hot Cheetos or fruit?
Hot Takis?
Takis? Yeah.
How about some Takis?
Okay. Do you like to make a plan or be spontaneous?
Oh man, I would love to be spontaneous. Yeah, I like that. I don't get a lot of that anymore, but I would enjoy that.
Okay, what's your favorite day of the week?
Favorite day of the week? Monday.
That's my favorite day of the week.
Monday.
Wait, why is it your favorite day of
I'm
the
a
week?
workaholic. When people, if any of y'all leave y'all jobs halfway through Friday, I despise you. I want to work. I love work. I truly love work. That's not true. I love the weekends too. But I do like Mondays because I feel like fresh new energy, like getting back to it. There's something about a Monday that feels energizing.
Okay. And then where do you go to get inspiration?
Whoa. Man, I feel like I read a lot. Yeah, shout out to reading.
Shout out to reading.
It's fundamental. Shout out to LeVar Burton for giving us the Reading Rainbow. Because honestly, if I didn't see that black man reading books, I don't know if I would have read them. I'm being honest. It's really important. But no, I'm a big reader. Anywhere where like imagination can play. Like for me, like art, music, books, like anywhere where you can just kind of let imagination run. And I often find myself super inspired by folks who are like going down a path or a career or a journey that like they themselves are insanely excited about, a little bit of nervous about, but like they're so dedicated to it. And like to me, that dedication is super inspiring.
Jay, thank you so much for being here. I mean,
thank you guys.
You guys, Top Gun Maverick is out Memorial Day weekend. Let's give it up for Jay Ellis.
Hey. Thank you guys.
What do we have here?
God, here I thought we were special.
What the hell kind of mission is this?
Everyone here is the best there is. Who are they gonna get to teach us?
Captain Pete Maverick Mitchell. You were here at the request of Admiral Kazansky, a.k.a. Iceman. He seems to think that you have something left to offer the Navy. What that is, I can't imagine.
With all due respect, sir, I'm not a teacher.
Just want to manage expectations.
What the hell? Good morning, aviators. This is your captain speaking.
We're going into combat on a level no living pilot's ever seen. Not even him.
You think up there you're dead. Believe me.
My dad believed in you. I'm not gonna make the same mistake. Someone's not coming back from this.
Those are your pilots. Anything happens to them, you will never forgive yourself.
Smoke in the air! Smoke in the air!
No turning back now.
Oh, shit! Having any fun yet?
Top Gun Maverick, rated PG-13. New trailer online now.